Will he apologise to the victims of the rapists, sexual predators and paedophiles that he is planning to release early? This is it. Because if Labour cannot protect the citizens of this country, either domestically or internationally, then what on earth is the point of them?
Justice Secretary David Lammy stood in Parliament and refused 3 separate times to apologise to the victims of rapists and paedophiles he's releasing early from prison. Instead of giving straight answer, he deflected responsibility. Welcome to Politics and Principles, where we don't just discuss politics, but the principles that will be driving political decisions and actions. And today's principle is about as simple as it gets. When there's no accountability, there is no justice. Let's get into the details.
Will he apologise to the victims of the rapists, sexual predators and paedophiles that he is planning to release early?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to welcome the Shadow Housing Secretary to the dispatch box. He, of course, could have been doing this job every week if he were better with numbers. Now, he asks about a very serious issue, and every decision we have taken has been based on public safety and delivering justice for victims.
James cleverly asked Lammy directly, would he apologise to the victims of the inmates he plans to release early? Lammy claimed the decision was all about public safety and delivering justice for victims. But he wouldn't apologise. Let me ask the obvious question. How does releasing dangerous criminals onto our streets make the public safer? And how exactly are you delivering justice for victims while giving their attackers early release? This makes absolutely no sense at all.
50,000 prisoners released early in just 2 years on his watch. And I am genuinely shocked. Mr. Speaker, that when given the opportunity to apologise to victims, he very publicly failed to do so. Let me remind him what this is about. Let me quote Fiona Goddard, herself a victim of grooming gangs, who has been brave and open about how his policy will impact her. And she says, "Finding out that they may be released early has completely set me back. I have barely left the house. I feel constantly anxious, frightened, and unsafe. I can barely sleep." This is the impact his policy is having on victims. He refuses to apologise. But why is he pursuing a policy which he must know is both wrong and dangerous?
Without getting the response he felt the victims and their family needed, cleverly pressed Lammy again. But Lammy still refused to apologise. Second opportunity with the same result. Let's look at the record while we're at it. Labour has already released 50,000 prisoners in just 2 years, all while claiming they are delivering justice and protecting victims. One refusal is one thing, but when you have 50,000 releases and still no accountability, we're not dealing with 1 or 2 bureaucratic mistakes. This is proving to be a pattern. Who is Lammy trying to convince that this is any form of justice? What kind of protection? And protection for whom? Is this not double victimization? A country cannot survive without a system of real justice and real accountability. This is unbelievable. When the Justice Secretary calls this justice, something has gone terribly wrong with the moral compass of our leaders.
Of course we think of every victim, and that's why we're notifying victims in discussion with all victims. I sat last week in my surgery with a victim of grooming gangs. All of us want to see offenders locked up. That's why we've got to have prison capacity.
So James cleverly.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about 10,000 early release over 14 years of Conservative government. They have released 50,000 in 2 years. And he knows it's wrong. He is a good man. He must know that it is wrong to release 5,000 serious criminals, including rapists, including paedophiles. And not only does he know it's wrong, But his party knows it's wrong. 400 Labour MPs and not one voted to support the government's policy in the vote last night. They know it's wrong. The country knows it's wrong, but he insists on pursuing it anyway. So if he will not change course, will he at least make this guarantee that not one rapist or paedophile will be released early later on this year?
Lammy said that he wants dangerous criminals to be locked up. But if that's true, why is he letting dangerous criminals out? It's such a blatant contradiction. This swapping one set of dangerous criminals for another set sounds like another ridiculous one-in-one-out plan that Labour tried to pull with France over trading illegal migrants between the two countries. But let's keep the focus on domestic policy for now. I agree that Lammy should apologise to the victims of rape gangs and their families. But before we even get to the point where an apology is necessary, the policy that brought us to this point needs to be called into question, corrected swiftly, and replaced with a more workable solution that keeps criminals where they belong, law-abiding citizens kept safe, and takes victims of these terrible crimes into account. Because once again, the victims are being placed on the back burner. Why has Lammy let 5,000 serious criminals walk free onto our streets? Doesn't he expect that releasing criminals will lead to more crime? When you do the crime, you should serve the time. That's not just my view. Even Lammy's fellow Labour MPs won't back this plan, and the British public overwhelmingly rejects it. But Lammy is not backing down from his core belief that it's the right thing to do.
We're rolling out the largest programme of tagging in our history. We're forcing offenders to stay boxed in certain areas rather than where victims are. We're creating alcohol, pub, football and driving bans. We're implementing income reduction orders, and we're expanding chemical castration for sex offenders. None of it happened when they were in power.
Sir James Cleverly.
Mr. Speaker, he will look back on this exchange and I think he will be shocked by how this is coming across. No apology to the victims, no guarantee that paedophiles and rapists will not be released early. We all know that releasing dangerous criminals on purpose is the wrong thing, but not content with doing that, he is hell-bent on releasing dangerous criminals by accident. Last year, in response to the questions of my right honourable friend, the member for South Suffolk, he claimed that under Labour he had got a grip of accidental releases. Yet we now know there have been more accidental releases in the last 2 years than in the entirety of the last Parliament. So I give him another chance. Will he apologise to the country for his abject failure at keeping prisoners in prison where they belong?
I've got to say, this is rich coming from the Honourable Gentleman.
Exactly.
They had 14 long years in power. They wrecked neighbourhood policing. He was Home Secretary. Prisons were at bursting point. That's why they called the general election. And they let out offenders in secret. And that is why we have the Sentencing Act that passed through this House and the House of Lords. What we're doing is we are getting thousands more bobbies on the beat. We're toughening up probation. They've decimated it. And we have to have the space to knock up dangerous criminals. That's why we passed the sentencing bill.
Sir James Cleverly.
Mr. Speaker, it's the dangerous criminals that he is letting out early. So he refuses to apologise to victims, he refuses to guarantee that sexual offenders and rapists will not be released early.
Lammy tried to claim that some prisoner releases were by accident. How do you accidentally plan to release dangerous criminals? And again, if it was truly an accident, why not apologise instead of seeking to shift the blame elsewhere? Can someone please tell Lammy and Labour that this is not the way accountability works? Meanwhile, Labour is pushing hard for digital ID on the British public. First, Starmer said it was to stop the boats. Then he changed the story to, Make government systems work better. If Labour is so keen on digital tracking, why not use it more efficiently in the prison system so we know exactly who is inside and when they are due to be released? That would minimize those so-called accidental releases. But I don't believe for 1 second these were accidental releases at all. This looks deliberate. And deliberate means someone has to be held accountable for it.
Mr. Speaker, at the dispatch box last week, my right honourable friend, the Leader of the Opposition, highlighted this government's failure to defend us internationally. Today, I have outlined his failure to defend us domestically. Because if Labour cannot protect the citizens of this country, either domestically or internationally, then what on earth is the point of them?
James cleverly asked Lammy for the third time to apologise to the victims. But yet again, Lammy refused. 3 strikes? If this were a game, it would be 3 strikes and you're out. But Lammy was still holding on. And what was his weak line? Lammy blamed the Tories for the problems they inherited and claimed he's fixing it by releasing dangerous criminals early. Where's the apology? Where is even a shred of decency to acknowledge their party's failure of accountability here? When will Lammy and Labour stop this blame game? We need politicians who are not afraid to acknowledge where they got it wrong and stand up for the protection of our citizens from foreign and domestic threats. But hope that Labour is truly willing to do either is wearing thin. This is all the same government that couldn't even protect British interests when Iran fired missiles, because Starmer refused to get involved or to allow the US to use British military bases. We have open borders with thousands of young undocumented military-age men entering, with over 12,500 crossing the channel this year, according to GB News. And they are housed and taken care of by taxpayers' expense. And now we are releasing thousands of criminals onto our streets. Different headlines, same government, same refusal to accept responsibility for any of it. None of this makes the nation safer. None of this will cause the British people to trust the government to keep them safe. Real leaders accept where they have gone wrong. That's the only way to fix things before the problem reaches your own doorstep. You don't wait until it's too late. You fix it now. Leaders should not let ideology override common sense and basic morality. No accountability, no justice. You do the crime, you serve the time. Full stop. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you want more content like this, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification. Thanks for watching Politics and Principles, where principles still matter.